Hello everyone! Thank you so much for watching another Sketch and Paint live video with me. So just so you know, all these videos are going to be available to watch on YouTube also after this live session. So in this session I would like to paint a fox with you. Foxes are like my favorite animals, and I thought it would be fun to do a cozy fox. So we're going to start with the sketch, and I hope that you will be able to see what I'm sketching, and then after that we're going to start with the watercolor. So I've painted a lot of foxes in my life, and I like to paint whimsical ones and realistic ones, and I think now we're going for a bit of a whimsical illustration kind, not too realistic. And what I like about a fox, I don't know if you're able to see it because I'm sketching. I'm going to make some harder lines. I'm painting almost like this, how do you call it? I don't know the English terms, like somewhat of a square, and then we're going to paint the body. So I was thinking I like the tail of the fox on this side, and then have the legs of the fox like this. I hope you can see it. Something, if you're following along with me, I've got a description of the materials that you need in the description of the video. So also I'm going to do these live sessions more often so that you know what you can have prepared, and also if you're following this video later. So I want to suggest that you sketch very lightly. Draw with light pencil lines, because you don't want to see the lines after you finished with painting. So I'm drawing a little bit darker so that you'll be able to see a little bit what I'm doing here, but I am trying not to make it too dark. A little bit of fluff, and then the nose of the fox. I'm going to do it not entirely in the point, a little bit above, drawing a square, so then you can draw a bit of two curves for the mouth of the fox, and then two little circles for the eyes. So he's got a big head, but I think for this illustration it's looking great. Sketching a little bit of the hairs. So now what I was thinking, I want to make a little bit of an autumn vibe fox, so I want to give my fox nice warm scarf. Like that. When you like to erase, I always use a soft eraser. So there are a few lines that I won't be needing in the final sketch, final composition. I also prefer to use a brush to get rid of the eraser and the pencil, because you don't want to touch the paper with your fingers because of the grease. Sometimes I forget, but this is use a brush. That's a really nice way to do that. Alright, So what else can we do? I think it's a fat fox. I think I've been drawing too many cats. I'm going to slim the fox down a bit. All right, make this a bit. All right, looking more like it. And then the fox has got these, like the beak of the fox I usually paint white, and the rest is going to be orange, something like that. So I'm still thinking if I like the eyes where they are now. Perhaps I want them a little bit higher. That's the nice thing about sketching, you can still make changes in your composition. There's another thing, of course, you can sketch first on cheaper paper. I can recommend doing that. If you're a beginner, then you like to sketch a lot, and then when you got your composition, you can put it on the actual paper. So I'm using watercolor paper. Okay, these make him look angry. Wait, I'm going to get rid of this line. I think I'm going to make this entire part white. So, as I said, I want it to be a cozy fox. So the fox is enjoying autumn. I'm going to paint some autumn leaves surrounding it. I'm just thinking if there's anything else I like to, I'm going to make the fox sit on a blanket. All right. And now I'm drawing leaves. So I'm just wondering whether or not I should paint something like tea near the fox. I mean, that would certainly give it an extra cozy vibe. Just wondering if it wouldn't look too weird. but then again the fox is wearing a scarf, so I'm going to draw a book here. And on top of that book, I am going to draw a cup of tea. So this is something that you would usually be sketching on your practice paper, and then you've got the composition, you know what you want to draw. So now I need to erase a lot on my watercolor paper, and you want to avoid that, but that's all right. This evening I was in the mood for painting and not think about it too much beforehand. I just really wanted to get in a certain flow. So that's what I've been doing lately, going live and starting painting, and it has been a very mindful exercise for me. Though in the future it might be good if I prepare this more. But at the same time I'm still learning the process of going live, all the technical stuff. So I hope that the sound is alright, that you can properly hear me. Also, if you're watching and you'd like to say hello, of course you can put something in the chat, and then I would really love to know where you're watching from. I am from the Netherlands. It's evening here, so nice moment to put on a candle and have some me time. And my me time is painting. So especially now after a busy week at work, it's really nice to get my paint supplies and start creating. Alright, so we've got some really nice cozy stuff surrounding this fox. The fox is out in the forest with tea and a nice book to read, and he has his scarf so it's not cold. Very nice. So I'm going to paint some leaves. I'm going to paint a branch right here. I always love to paint or create forest themed illustrations. I love the forest. We go hiking in the forest very often, and I also try to spot animals. I actually spotted 2 foxes in the forest at one day, so I felt very lucky. I think they're really beautiful. I also love to paint acorn leaves in my illustrations. Just a few more leaves to fill up some voids, and then I think we are ready to move on to the painting part. Now I've kept some space here. I think I'm going to paint 1 or 2 leaves. but I like to draw some grass here. You know what? I'm going to draw a mushroom here in the corner. Of course, it's autumn, so there are mushrooms. You see, I'm using my hand. I shouldn't be doing that. I'm going to draw another mushroom right here. Alright, so we made a sketch of our fox and we are going to prepare this now to start with painting. So one thing I'm going to do now, and I'm going to lift off the pencil lines from the paper so that when I'm painting the pencil lines won't be visible, because that's not really nice in your painting. You don't want to see that in your end result. The only thing is that when I start doing this, you won't be able to see what I'm doing for a while. So I will be painting and then you will see the shapes again, what I'm doing here. So with a kneading eraser, it's you pinch it a bit. It's nice and sticky, so you press it like this on your paper and it just rubs off the excess pencil. So that's the other thing, another piece of advice, to always sketch with an HB pencil. If you want to paint with watercolor and you want to be able to erase your pencil lines, use an HB pencil, because then the pencil is thick enough for you to see, but it's easy enough to remove. If you're using B pencils, there's a lot of graphite in those and it's more difficult to remove from your paper. And if you use H pencils, then you don't have enough, so you need to push harder to make it visible, and then you've got these dents in your paper where your pencil lines used to be. So because I've been drawing so hard, I drew the lines so hard to make them visible for you, I am not able to really get all the excess pencil off, but that's all right. I'm going to start painting now. I am using a round brush, a size 6 brush, and I'm first going to activate the paints on my palette. I use a water spray bottle and I'm just wetting all my paint so that it's easier for me to start painting. Paint still is then already wet. I'm not the type of person to clean her painting palette. I always keep on painting and it's good enough for me, but my apologies if it looks a little bit messy. So we're painting a fox and I always like to start with a nice orange color. So let's begin. Try to stay within the lines of the pencil sketch, the composition that you just have drawn. This way, if the paint has dried, when you're finished, you can use a soft eraser to erase the rest of the pencil lines if you haven't been drawing too thick of lines. And also this way it makes sure that you won't have separate paint colors, separate areas touch each other, so that you don't have unwanted blending of colors. So now I am painting the ears, and I am not painting the tip of the ears because I want them to be in a different color. So in my mind I know where the orange needs to go, or at least where I want the orange to go. And now my paint is drying really fast, but what I want to do before it's completely dry, adding another color, in this case I'm using brown, to add some shading. And when your paint is still wet, it is blending in nicely. But for some reason my paint is drying really fast. That it does that when it's warm, when it's nice warm day, but that's not the case. It can also depend on the kind of paper or paint that you're using. Alright, but you see with this color that we've been adding, it gets a little bit more dimension. So I want to add some more, a little bit darker orange. This looks like more of a fox orange color. Alright, moving on to the tail. So we're not painting the tip of the tail because that's going to be white. Now I don't paint with white watercolor, the paper is already white. But I'm going to show you later how I'm going to paint the white pieces. Alright, so the orange pieces need to dry. So I'm going to start with some of the leaves and the other items that we have been drawing alongside the fox. I like to usually start with sap green. It's like one of the base colors that I use. But in this case it's an acorn leaf, and I like it to be autumn colored, so I'm going to drop in a bit of yellow and a bit of ochre, like that. Now we've got a few more acorn leaves over here. I'm using a new brand of paint for this sap green, and I'm getting used to it. It's more pigmented, so I feel like I'm using a lot of water and as little paint as possible, and it still has got this really vibrant saturated color. While I was thinking I was putting too much on my brush. You see, when you drop in the colors like this, it blends in very smoothly, very nicely. So if you have any questions about what I'm doing here, about the painting process or anything else, just let me know. Drop it in the comments. It's also nice to know if you're watching, to tell me where you're from, where you're watching from at this moment. And if you like to paint yourself, It would be really nice if you try to follow along, and then I love to see what you've been creating. So you can share it on social media, and you can use the hashtag #CreateWithSandra's. You can tag me, and if you want to receive feedback on what you're creating, don't hesitate to ask. I'll be happy to give it to you. And I'll be constantly creating new content, so if you've got any suggestions or requests, please let me know. I must admit that lately, last few weeks, I've been really in this autumn mood, cozy vibes. I think this might be my favorite season when it comes to painting. I feel so much inspiration. So we're painting in nice autumn leaves. I'm going to give them a little bit more color, some of them. Wait, I like it to be more red. Of course, at this moment we are painting in the first layer. We will come back when this has dried to add details. That really is the fun part. So what color scarf will we give the fox? I think I'm going to go with purple. That's like my favorite color. I think it's a tie, green and purple. Purple works really nice with the orange. Some darker, little bit blue that I mixed with the purple. Again, a bit for the shading. Yes, that looks really nice. Alright, the blanket. I like to go for a red, dark pink kind of color. So I need to be careful and paint around the stuff that is on top of this blanket. And no worries, we are going to finish the fox, but I like the orange paint to dry as good as it can before we move on, just to avoid some unwanted blending. So I'm going to let that blanket dry. Paint a few more leaves. At this part, it basically is painting in coloring sheet. I know the composition and I'm just thinking about what color am I going to use for what part. I always like this very much, very mindful. Only sometimes I need to think a bit what color I like to use. Because I like my compositions to be balanced. So make sure that the colors fit together, and in some cases I like to pay attention if I'm using the colors balanced throughout the illustration. So are you still with me? So if you are trying to paint this yourself, I mean, this video is going to be available to look back after we have been live. So you can come back later and watch this. Make sure you've got your paint supplies and then follow along. So then I would really love to see your creation. And if you've got any questions, please let me know. You can put something in the chat. You can tell me where you're from. You can tell me what you like to learn or like to know about what I'm doing here. So I'm going to make toadstools out of these mushrooms. So what you can do is use masking fluid to make some dots on these and then paint over it with the red paint. I'm not going to do that now. As you see, I'm going to let it dry and then use some white gouache to cover it. So now I am thinking, what color am I going to make the teacup and the teapot? I'm not sure about it yet. Alright, I'm going to continue a bit more on the fox while I'm figuring out the color of the teapot and the teacup. And I am going to paint the pieces of the fox that usually are black or really dark, but I also don't like to paint with black. So I really like to use indigo blue instead of black. So one of the parts of the fox that needs to be really dark is the nose. I like to keep it a bit white. Now the eyes. And then the tip of the ears. The paws and the bottom of the legs are also dark. I really love to use indigo for this. And now these paws here. It already is starting to look more like a fox. I don't know how about you, but I'm really liking this very much. Cleaning my brush. So I think we're also good to go to move on to the white part of the fox. Yes, you heard me right. We are going to paint the white part of the fox, which is already white. Again, I don't like to use white. White isn't really watercolor. There are watercolor white paints, but they're really opaque. And I just like to paint the shades on the tail, on the face. And I am going to do that again with a blue color, but it's with a very, very light blue color. So it's going to look like this. I'm using a size 6 round brush the entire time, and I am using the tip of my brush for this. I'm going to paint strokes all around the place where I want it to be white. And of course I am drawing fur here, or painting fur, so I can follow the shapes of the the hair of the tail. So I'm adding water on my clean brush and I'm going over this to blend it in a bit. I can go over the orange here just a bit. And if you're doing this and you think this is too much, this is too blue, what you can do is use a white paper towel and carefully dab a bit. And then in the end you still like the outsides to be visible. We let this dry for now. And then we're going to do the same with the belly of the fox. So we're painting the fur on top of the rest. And now I'm going to put some water on my brush and then blend it out a bit. And then the same for the face. And I'm very careful. We've got the beak of the fox here. So again, we paint small lines and then with a clean brush put some water. You don't want to make it too wet. So also use your old rags or your paper towels a lot to brush off the paint and the water off your brush. Do this very gently. Alright, time to let that dry as well. And then the inside of the ears I like to paint with pink. Be careful because I don't think the indigo has dried yet entirely. All right. What color is the teapot going to be? I think I'm going to go for pink. So if you're watching me, I'd love to know where you're from. So you can drop something in the chat. Tell me where you're from. Also, if you like to tell me, do you like to paint? Would you be interested in trying this yourself? I'm thinking about dropping in some color inside the teapot, and yes, a little bit purple, nice. And the teapot and the teacup. All right, so I'm really loving where this is going. I need to draw and paint the inside of the book with a very light wash. And we need to paint the bottom of the toadstools. I'm doing that very gently, painting the outline, and then I'm going to use water on my brush to blend it out a bit, to make sure that it's very light. You can always use your brush to get rid of some excess paint or water if you made it too wet. So what we have to paint now, I like to add a bit more details here. I want to paint something at the bottom, but I need to be careful because there's a lot of wet paint down there. So I was thinking I want to make the bottom of this illustration grass. So the fox is sitting in the grass on a picnic blanket with its book and its tea, really enjoying the nice autumn weather. So I'm making sure that I won't be touching the other pieces. At least I'm trying. Especially for the pieces that are still wet, if I will be touching them, the paint is going to be blending in. So if you like to follow along with my videos, I always list the supplies that you need in the description. And if you have any questions, you can always ask me. I love to see what you create, so if you do share them on social media, you can tag me at Sandra's Art Studio. You can use the hashtag #CreateWithSandras. And if you would like to receive feedback on what you're creating, don't hesitate to ask. I would love to give you feedback. And these videos that I'm doing in my live sessions, they will be available to watch later on my channel. So you can always go back and try them again. Alright, so our first layer is almost done. I'm just doing a few final things here. And we are slowly moving on to start with painting the details. There are already pieces of this illustration dry enough. So I'm going to move on to a smaller brush. I like to use a size 2. You can use size 1 or a size 0. And I am going to start with the pieces that have already dried. So the easy pieces are the leaves. I'm using a darker green here, and I'm going to add some stripes on my leaves. This is always my favorite part when painting the details on top of an illustration, because then it really gets some body. It becomes interesting. It's also a very relaxing and mindful exercise, so I can recommend this to anybody. So for the browner leaves, I'm using darker brown for the lines. And it's also not important to make it perfect. You can always have some flaws while you're painting. I think personally that is the beauty of creating art. So just something to keep in mind, that when you're painting, when you're creating, don't aim for it to be perfect, because then you put a lot of stress on yourself, and if you're afraid that something is going to work, then well, somehow chances are that you are going to make some mistakes and then feel like you're failing, and then you don't dare to do it anymore. Just see this as a relaxing, creative moment, and just like you're exploring. Before I started with this illustration, I knew that I wanted to paint a fox, and that I wanted to be set in a cozy autumn scene, but that was it. And I was going live, and of course I could fail. I can make errors here and make this fail some, if you want to use a word. But if I would be worried about it not being perfect or needing to be perfect, then I don't think I would be doing this. Painting or creating, it's a process. So if you're out there and you'd like to say hi, I would really like to know where you're from, and if you like to create yourself, if you're recognizing anything that I just said. Do you like to paint, or do you feel like you would really want to paint but you think that you can't? I would really like to know who you are and what you think about that. So I'm adding some details here, and I've got a smaller brush, so that's really nice, really small hairs that I'm drawing here. And I'm going to do that on the face as well. And I'm going to paint some dots here where the whiskers are going. Some dots here. I'm still thinking about what I'm going to do with the part above the eye. If I'm going to use some orange or some blue, or leave it this way, I'm not sure yet. I'm going to pick some orange. I think I'm going to go for a bit darker orange and add some details to the fox. Like here on the tail with some darker orange. And here, basically everywhere. This really is my thing, painting details on illustrations. I really love doing this. It just gives it a bit extra. I'm sorry if I'm getting too quiet. It's just a very relaxing exercise for me. So foxes are my favorite animals to paint. I've got a lot of animals that I like to paint, but foxes really are my favorite. And I think second are robins. So what are your favorite animals, or what is your one favorite animal to paint? Just leave it in the comments. I would really like to know. Is there any animal that you would really love to paint but you don't know how to paint it? That you just wouldn't know where to start? Well, I must admit I have such an animal that I feel like a really big challenge for me to paint. And that is horses. I think they're really beautiful, but somehow they feel like very challenging. You need to do it absolutely right. So I was just saying something about not wanting it to be perfect, and I guess somehow horses make me feel like it needs to be absolutely perfect, and otherwise it just doesn't look like a horse. So perhaps I should try it, give it a go. So that's another thing I have to admit, I have never even tried to draw or paint a horse. Perhaps when I was like 12 or something, but I'm pretty sure that's the last time. So now I've got a daughter who is crazy about unicorns, and I even haven't tried painting that because basically it's a horse and I'm going to mess it up, I'm certain. So again, don't listen to me. Basically what I'm saying here is that I need to try it. So I guess I'm going to commit myself to doing that to prove that you don't need to be worried and it doesn't have to be perfect. It's all about the creating process. And of course that's another thing. If you want to really become good at something, then you just need to do it very often. That's when people talk about talent. Talent basically means that there's something you love doing so much that you do it really often, and that is the reason that you become good at it. And you learn from what you're doing. You learn from mistakes, if you want to call it mistakes, but you learn by doing. So, little sidetrack, as you see what I'm doing, I am painting some details on this scarf, this nice knitted scarf of the fox. Loving this. So some other thing I want to put some details on is that blanket. I like some stripes and I'm going to make them a bit curvy because it's a blanket and it's lying on the floor a little bit mashed up, trying to give it this optical like illusion that it's in a certain shape. I also need to work on my painting and talking at the same time qualities. All right, loving that too. Let me see, I am going to, yes, we've got some dry leaves here at the bottom. I like to get some more lines on this one. Now, if you like to see me totally into the details that I usually am, I'm just going to do it. As I said, I want the fox to sit on the grass, so I'll be painting the grass. And yes, this is something that I do a lot in my paintings and my illustrations, painting all the teeny tiny grass. Loving this. Very relaxing. Don't need to think about it. All you need is a really small brush, some beautiful green paint, so my apologies if I'm zoning out for a moment. This is just really relaxing for me. As you can see, I am using different colors and sizes. That's okay. The variety is what's making this illustration interesting. I'm sorry, I'm having the feeling that my camera isn't... Alright, we're back. It was blurry. I hope it wasn't blurry for a long time. As I said in the beginning of this video, I am still figuring out this technical part of the going live. And it's something that I would really like to get better at, because I really like doing this. And I like to create good content, but then of course the video needs to be in a good quality. So we are really coming along a lot with all the details. I'm really liking this. So one thing that I'm going to do now is going to grab my white gouache and I'm going to add a few details. Of course, we are going to put the dots on top of the toadstools. And we're going to put some white on the eyes of the fox. You do that when you're absolutely certain that the indigo paint has dried. Otherwise, it will blend in and you won't. Well, it wouldn't look good. All right, so moving on to the last part, and that's adding some metallic paint final touches. I really like to add metallic to my illustrations. Gives it that extra finishing touch, making it look really beautiful. So I'm using dark green a lot, and I put it on top of leaves. So I already made the stripes with another paint, but I like to do it like this because otherwise the metallic paint can be a little bit more transparent. Now I'm using brown for the brown leaves. And you might not be able to see it very well at this moment, but when the painting has dried, it's going to give a really interesting effect. Got a few brown leaves underneath here. Alright, now one other thing that I like to do is to use some metallic. I'm using this orange color or copper for the blanket. I'm going to make the stripes next to the thicker red or dark pink stripes that I've painted. Like this. And I'm going to make vertical strokes as well. Makes it look really interesting I'm really loving this so much. So I'm thinking, is there something we need? I think we're almost done. I like to add some gold somewhere. I'm going to add some gold on the cover of this book. And here on the teapot. And here on the teacup. And now for finishing touch, I'm going to paint some golden circles, very gently and playful, around the illustration. Now you see, or at least I see, I don't know if you can see it, but there still are some pencil lines visible, and I don't like that. So once the paint has dried really good, so at least 1 day waiting, and then I'm going to get my soft eraser and get rid of the excess pencil lines. I also like to do a few more with this blue greenish color, also metallic. All the paints that I'm using, including this metallic ones and the well, the other metallic ones, this one's and the other, I have them listed in the description of this video. Alright, I think that we are done. I hope that you enjoyed watching this video. Of course, don't forget every time when you paint to draw your signature at the bottom. I'm going to wait until this has dried, then I'm going to take off the washi tape, put it underneath there. Again, I hope that you enjoyed watching this video. If you've got any questions, don't hesitate to ask. If you followed along and like to show me the results, you can send it to me, you can tag me, you can ask for feedback. And also, if you have got any feedback for me, please let me know. I'm just figuring out this going live and the technical parts. So if there's anything wrong with the video quality or the audio, please let me know. I like to fix that. Any other suggestions are welcome as well. So thank you for watching me and see you in the next one.